Hello all and welcome back to the Sensei's Kitchen Top, where we play Pauper Commander and other formats. Today we are back with more 1v1 Pauper Commander. I am playing Rona, Disciple of Gix, and one of the fans from the server, Permafrost, is playing his Imperious Perfect deck. I keep an opening hand of Clear the Mind, Hubris, Thought Scour, 3 islands, and a swamp. Frost mulligans down to 5 and keeps Tangled, Springbloom Druid, Winnower Patrol, Ambassador Oak, and a Fertile Thicket. I cheat and do a few things wrong accidentally this game, so I guess look forward to that. Without any further ado, let's get to the game. I open up with an island and pass turn. Frost plays a Fertile Thicket looking at the top 5, and I Thought Scour, milling myself 2 and drawing a card. I play a Swamp and pass, Path of Ancestry pass. I play an island, tapping 3 I cast Rona, exiling Commander Sphere from my graveyard. Frost plays a forest for turn, and then plays a Springbloom Druid, scrying 1 off his Path of Ancestry, then sacrificing a forest to search for 2 more. I play my exiled Commander Sphere, play an island for turn, and then attack him with Rona for 2 damage. Frost plays a forest, and then casts his commander, buffing all his elves. Taps another green for a Nettle Sentinel, and then swings in for 2 damage himself. I play my land for turn, then tap 3 for Liliana's Spectre. Frost discards a forest, then I pay another 3 for an Archaeamender. When it enters the battlefield, I get back my Ancestral Statue from my graveyard. In his turn, Frost casts Winnower Patrol. He then attacks with his Nettle Sentinel and Druid, and I block the Druid with my Mender, killing it and taking 3 damage. And in his second main, Frost casts Wirewood Herald, untapping his Nettle Sentinel. I play a Mortuary Mire as my land, and then play a Workshop Assistant, passing back. Frost triggers his patrol, revealing a Timberwatch elf, putting a 1/1 counter on it. He then draws and pays the 3 mana to cast said elf, scrying 1 off his Path to Ancestry. Frost goes to combat and swings in with his Wirewood Herald, his Nettle Sentinel, and his Winnower Patrol. I deliberate for a moment before blocking the Wirewood Herald with my Workshop Assistant, the Winnower Patrol with my Liliana's Spectre, and the Nettle Sentinel with my Archaeamender. However, before damage, I tap my Commander Sphere for a blue, then sacrifice it to draw a card. Then cast Hubris, bouncing Frost's commander to his hand, and Frost activates it in response, creating another elf. With the buff gone, his Herald and Nettle Sentinel die, as do my Liliana's Spectre and Workshop Assistant, and when the assistant dies, I return Commander Sphere to my hand. In my turn, I cast a spicy main phase Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. Tapping a further 3, I recast my Commander Sphere. Then cast Oblivion Strike, exiling Frost's Timberwatch elf. On his turn, Frost plays a forest, and then pays an Ambassador Oak, creating an elf on ETB. Then swings in with his Winnower Patrol, putting me to 21. In my main phase, I cast a Strategic Planning, looking at the top 3 and putting an Evolving Wilds and a Charcoal Diamond to the bin. And then tapping some more mana, I cast an Ancestral Statue, and when it ETBs, I bounce Rona back to my hand. Frost gets his upkeep trigger, revealing a Multani's Acolyte, putting a counter on his patrol. Then casts said Acolyte using Path of Ancestry to scry one, and recasts his commander. He goes into the red zone with his patrol and his Ambassador Oak. I Vapor Snag the patrol back to his hand, dealing 1 damage to it, and block the Oak with my Ancestral Statue, killing it. In the end step, I cracked my Command Sphere to draw a card. I play an island for turn and cast a Dimir Informant, surveilling 1, and putting a Swamp into the graveyard. And I tap a black to cast an Unearth, getting back my Liliana's Spectre to make Frost discard some more cards. I then recast my commander, and on ETB, after scanning through my graveyard, decide to exile Commander Sphere again. Frost doesn't pay the echo cost on his Multani's Acolyte, then taps 3 and casts a Yavimaya Enchantress. Back to my turn, I once again recast my Commander Sphere. I then swing in with my Liliana's Spectre, putting Frost to 25 life. In my end step, Frost creates an elf with his commander. Frost immediately passes through his turn, and in his end step, I tap my Commander Sphere for a mana and then deliberate before sacking it and drawing a card, then using that mana and another 3 to activate Rona, exiling a Universal Solvent off the top of my library. I play my Swamp for turn, and then cast a Phyrexian Ranger, losing a life and drawing a card when it ETBs. I then cast my Universal Solvent, exiled with Rona, and hit Frost for another 2 in the air. In my second main phase, I cast an Arcbound Worker, and have to move my keyboard to make a little more space for my ever-increasing board state. In my end step, Frost creates another elf, and then goes to his turn. And casts a big burly boy, Tajura Pathwarden, scrying 1 off his Path to Ancestry. In his end step, I pay the 4 to activate Rona, and I exile a Harbour Serpent off the top of my library. Moving to my turn, I play a Swamp, and swing at Frost with my Liliana Spectre, putting him to 21. Passing back, he plays a Wild Heart Invoker, scrying 1. He then swings in with his Pathwarden and 4 2/2 elves. Before damage, I tap 7 mana and sacrifice my Universal Solvent to blow up his Pathwarden. I then cast a Repulse on his commander, returning it to his hand and drawing a card. In response, Frost taps it to create an elf. I block and kill all 4 of his elves, losing my Arcbound Worker in the process. Then I misplay and put the 1/1 counter on a non-artifact creature, but I fix it later. In my turn, I cast a Corpse Churn, milling 3 cards and returning a creature to hand. And I return Sultai Scavenger. Frost points out my mistake with the modular trigger, so I move the counter across to my Ancestral statue instead of my Liliana Spectre. I then delve away 5 cards and pay the additional black for my Sultai Scavenger. I then swing in with my Liliana Spectre and my Ancestral statue. Frost blocks the statue with his elf and takes 2 damage in the air. I then realise I've got an uncommon in my deck. Lots of cheating in today's episode. I decide to switch it out for the worst Pauper legal card I can find at the time. In his turn, Frost taps 6 mana for an Elvish Aberration. In his end step, I pay the 4, activating Rona, exiling the top card of my library, which is an island that I can't cast, so it goes straight into exile. I also cast an Unexplained Disappearance on my commander, losing the Harbour Serpent for good, and surveilling 1. I put an Aether Spellbomb to the graveyard. In my turn, I swing in for 5 damage in the air. I then recast my commander and, once again, exile Commander Sphere. I cast said Commander Sphere, and pass the turn. Frost pays for 2 mana for a Well-Wisher, scrying 1, then puts his commander back out on the battlefield. I tap my Commander Sphere for 1 and sacrifice it to draw a card as ever, and I pay the additional 3 mana for an Archaeomancer. When it ETBs, I return an Oblivion Strike to my hand. I then cast said Oblivion Strike, deliberating on my mana, exiling the Well-Wisher. I play an island for turn, and moving to combat, swing in for 5 in the air once again. However, before damage, Frost casts a Tangle. In his turn he plays a land, and then casts an Oaknarl Warrior. He taps his Elvish Aberration for 3 mana, and casts a Snake Umbra. Before my turn, I pay another 4 mana to activate Rona's ability once again, this time exiling an Unwind. I play a Swamp for turn, and then activate Rona once again, this time exiling an island. I delve away 6 cards from my graveyard and pay the 1 black for Big Daddy Gurmag Angler. Frost attacks with his Wild Heart Invoker, Elvish Aberration, and Oaknarl Warrior. I block with my Archaeomancer, Phyrexian Ranger, and a Dimir Informant. Before damage, Frost activates the Invoker's ability, giving his Warrior +5/+5 and Trample. All my blockers die, and I go to 12 life. I pay the 4 to once more activate my commander, this time exiling a Filigree Familiar. Going into the red zone, I hit Frost down to 9 with my 2 flyers. I then cast my Filigree Familiar, and when it enters the battlefield, I gain 2 life. Frost pays the 3 mana to cast an Ancestral Mask. However, I respond, casting my Unwind, untapping 3 lands in the process. Moving to combat, Frost swings in with his Warrior, his Invoker, decides to swing with his Commander as well, and then decides to swing in with the Yavimaya Enchantress as well. I block with my Gurmag Angler and Ancient Statue, put my Filigree Familiar in as a blocker as well. Frost activates his Wildheart Invoker. In response, I Blade Brand, giving my Filigree Familiar Death Touch and cantripping, trying to find anything to save me. We go to damage step and doing all the math. I go to 0 and lose the game. GG. What an exciting game. I'm pretty happy because my Rona deck was fairly new at the time of recording, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Exiled loads of cards from the graveyard, created a big board state, bounced my commander a lot. It was a lot of fun. Frost drawing 2 lands off the top to cast his Springbloom Druid was insanely lucky, and obviously went on to create a big elf-based board state that just trampled over and completely ruined me. A lot of luck to begin with, but a lot of skill in deck building coming into play later on. Well done. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, please do subscribe for new videos. Head down to the description to find any relevant links, including the last video I made. And while you're down there, make sure you join the Kitchen Top Discord for friendly conversation about the channel, and maybe even play some games. Watch some other videos while you wait, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!